Okay, I've read Hunter Biden's indictment. I have a lot of thoughts on this. The document itself lays out the requirements for the background check form, lays out that you have to certify that truthfully that the purchaser is not an unlawful user of, addicted to any stimulant, narcotic drug, or any other controlled substance, and that making any false oral or written statement on this form is a crime punishable as a felony under federal law, yada, yada, yada. Why was this indictment brought now? Because this statute has a 5-year statute of limitations, and Hunter Biden bought this firearm on October 12th, 2018. So less than a month from now, that statute of limitations runs, meaning it expires, and they wouldn't be able to bring these charges ever. So that's why the indictment was filed now. So they're saying that on that date, he knowingly made a false and fictitious written statement on the background check form, provided a written statement on form 4473, certifying that he was not an unlawful user of and addicted to any stimulant, narcotic drug, and any other controlled substance, when in fact, as he knew, that statement was false and fictitious. Now, what is their evidence that in his mind, Hunter Biden knew that he was an addict on October 12th, 2018? What is their evidence, and how are they going to get that evidence in at a trial? Because if it's in Hunter Biden's mind, he cannot be compelled to testify against himself under the Fifth Amendment. Just kind of a curious aside. That's count one. Count two is identical. Count two is identical to count one. Robert Hunter Biden certified on form 4473 that he was not an unlawful user of and addicted to any stimulant, narcotic drug, or any other controlled substance when in fact he knew that statement was false and fictitious. Why two charges when the two charges are identical to one another? That doesn't make sense. So the first two counts are false statements. Those are false statement charges. Count three is a possession count. On or about October 12th, 2018 through October 23rd, 2018. Important. They're charging him with 3 felonies 5 years later for a gun that he owned for 11 days, never loaded, and never fired. 3 felonies 5 years later, after having been investigated by the same prosecutor for more than 5 years. Knowing that he was an unlawful user of and addicted to any stimulant, narcotic drug, and any other controlled substance as defined herein. Again, how are they going to prove that? Did knowingly possess a firearm, a Colt revolver, 38 Special. So that's the whole thing. It's 5 pages. It's really 4. Now, it's not really a speaking indictment. It doesn't go into a great amount of detail. What's their evidence to prove that he was in active addiction at the time that he filled out that form and possessed that gun? And for the third count, that he was actually using narcotics during those 11 days. What is their proof? What is their evidence for that? These 3 charges are never brought as standalone charges, meaning those are the only 3 charges that are in that indictment. They are almost always brought in connection with other felonies like drug trafficking, drug dealing, bank robbery. There's always a higher felony charge, and then these are tacked on at the end. They are never brought as standalone charges. Hunter Biden's got no priors. He's never been to prison. Importantly, about the plea agreement. 2 months ago, this was done. It was over. There was a signed plea agreement. And 2 months ago, these 3 gun felonies, This same prosecutor was not going to charge Hunter Biden with these offenses. He was going to put him into diversion, meaning that he finishes a period of probation, and if he successfully completes that, then he would never be charged with these crimes. What changed over the last 2 months? Not the facts. Hunter Biden's been in compliance with the terms of that plea agreement. There's been no change in the law other than to say that that statutory structure that this special prosecutor is charging Hunter Biden now was recently found to be unconstitutional by the federal Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. So this special counsel is indicting Hunter Biden under a statute that has been deemed to be unconstitutional by a federal appellate court. You want to talk about a two-tiered justice system? This dude's been investigated for more than 5 years. Trump's DOJ had his laptop for 19 months prior to Election Day. Bill Barr said there's nothing there. This special counsel has investigated all of Hunter Biden's taxes, finances, foreign business earnings, overseas earnings for more than 5 years. And this is all they got. Again, it's one gun, it's one form, it's one set of facts, 3 felony charges. I think, and there's no change in the law or the facts. I think this indictment demonstrates very clearly an abuse of prosecutorial discretion. And I would be saying all of this same shit if that was Don Jr. who was indicted instead of Hunter Biden. And it's Joe Biden's own DOJ that is bringing charges against the president's son, the president who is the head of the executive branch under which the DOJ falls. This is selective prosecution. It's retaliatory. It's repetitive charges. It's an invalid, in my view, an invalid indictment in light of the Fifth Circuit ruling, finding that statute to be unconstitutional. And with regard to the first 2 counts that are false statement counts, when you bring a false statement case against someone, the lie has to be material. And part of the challenge of, and the Supreme Court is going to hear all of these issues in their next term relative to these statutes about gun possession and gun purchasing. But in the Bruin case last year, the court found that Hunter Biden has a constitutional right to own a handgun and carry it in public. He has those 2 constitutional rights. And so lying on this form, it's not material. The falsehood has to be material to the case itself. If he has a constitutional right to carry a handgun in public, as the Supreme Court said last year, then he has that constitutional right, regardless of whether he lied on a form or not. So the lie is immaterial. And everything in this case, as I said at the beginning, everything in this case is predicated on addiction. And when you go to trial, you have to have evidence. How do you get evidence admitted during a trial? You get evidence admitted through witnesses, through testimony. Who is going to testify that Hunter Biden was an active drug addict, not just a drug user, a drug addict, for those 11 days in October 2019? This indictment, along with the House's impeachment, is a dramatic overreach. This prosecutor has painted himself into a corner. He can't take this case to trial. He's boxed himself in, and now he has to work out a deal, and he has to hope that Hunter Biden and his attorneys are willing to talk about that. If not, he's screwed.